Chapter 24. Grayson drove me to the emergency room. It took an hour of waiting to see a doctor. Grayson's nerves were clearly on edge and agitated. He paced and then settled in a chair. After a few minutes, he jumped up and paced again. "You're a very intense person," I said as I followed him with my eyes. He had passed me for what had to be the 100th time. He stopped.
"I'm sorry. It helps me think.
"What are you thinking about?"
How to remove Daegor from our lives."
I contemplated. He either needs to go to jail or he needs to find a new person to pick on. I didn't want to say the third option I was thinking, death. However satisfying it would be to know he could never harm anyone again, I wouldn't want anyone to have to wear an orange jumpsuit for life.
I wouldn't want him to pick on someone else just so he would leave us alone.
Then he has to go to jail.
David already gave evidence to the police. They didn't do anything.
Maybe they couldn't, I said. There might not have been enough evidence. They might be working on an investigation that will provide them with more evidence.
It doesn't look like he'll go to jail anytime soon.
How many years would he be sentenced to for being an accomplice to counterfeiting? I asked.
I don't know. It might be enough for him to forget his obsession with you. He would be angry with whoever turned in the evidence.
We have to find out who he sold the supplies to and pressure the person to go to the police.
Talk about Mission Impossible.
Grayson said.
First, we would have to figure out who's behind the counterfeiting. Then we would have to convince them to talk.
My name was called. Grayson and I followed the medical assistant to a small room. Grayson stood next to me like a guard dog the entire time. As soon as the doctor appeared, Grayson began listing my injuries. The doctor heard enough and raised his hand to stop Grayson.
"Why don't we take this from the top?"
The doctor suggested.
"Let's start with your head. Were you in an accident?"
My life was like a train wreck, but that wasn't the sort of accident he was talking about. I filled him in on my 2 head injuries, my 2 black eyes, and my bruised throat.
"And what about the bruise on your leg?"
He asked. "Oh, never pick a fight with an elevator. It will win." The doctor eyed me and then said,
"I'm most concerned about your brain."
Grayson, once again, was given the task of keeping me awake for 24 hours. After 2 head injuries and my rejection of scans and tests, he decided that was the best course.
Let's head to the house and regroup,
Grayson said, pulling out of the hospital parking lot.
Hopefully David figured out a plan because I have nothing.
Sounds good. It's already late and we have to stay awake for another 24 hours. This isn't going to be fun. The edges of Grayson's lips curled briefly. "Did you think about sex?" I asked him. He shrugged, but the smile came back. I was head to toe ugly with bruises, and he still wanted to have sex. Men. I smirked. David and Remy were waiting at the house. Maya was still upstairs. I ran to check on her. She was sleeping soundly. David had tucked her under the covers. I slipped out and returned downstairs. "She's sound asleep," I said.
"Hey, Jet, how's the head?"
Remy asked. Grayson stuck with me for another 24 hours.
"He's going to share that duty with me. He has a couple of morning meetings he has to attend."
"Shouldn't you sleep, Grayson? You can't go to the meetings half asleep,"
Don't worry.
Grayson said.
Meetings keep me on my toes. There's no way I'll fall asleep. Maybe in the last one. Taxes.
Yuck. I dread doing my own taxes, let alone having to worry about them for a corporation.
Luckily, I just make an appearance. As long as everyone is on track, I can make a quick escape.
"You can drive with me in the limo.
Remy said to me.
I'll give you a tour of the cockpit."
David smirked.
"Don't be smirking.
Remy said.
I've done some killer renovations."
I don't doubt you have.
A nagging feeling crept into my head. I couldn't shake the feeling I was forgetting something. Grayson, was I supposed to do something?
Not that I know of.
Maybe it's just my head. It hurts.
Let me get you something. I'm sure I have headache medicine.
When Grayson left the room, David stood up and walked over to me. He peered into my eyes like a doctor.
Do you have any other pain?
Yeah,
Where? Do you need ice?
I need food. I think my stomach is eating itself.
When did you eat last?
I think breakfast. I was working all day and then I was dragged here.
No wonder your stomach hurts.
Grayson returned with medicine and water.
There isn't any food here. I can order something.
I shook my head. Now I'm starting to feel queasy. It probably wouldn't be a good idea. Grayson sat and hooked his arm around me to lean against him.
Tell me if you decide you want to eat. I'll order something.
Okay,
Since everyone is here, we should figure out a game plan.
David said.
I have to hit the road by tomorrow night. I don't have a choice.
He stared point blank at Grayson.
Don't bother asking what I'm working on.
Grayson narrowed his eyes but didn't say anything. David continued.
We have two problems, Dagor and the counterfeit money.
Dagor seems to be the biggest threat.
Remy said.
Yeah, he's a threat.
Grayson said.
But if I don't get a handle on the counterfeit money problem, I'll have a multi-billion-dollar corporation down the drain within days.
This is all the same problem, I said. I'm sure if one disappears, the other will follow. Disappear. The counterfeiters used an old illusion trick of making the money disappear. A false bottom provided a way to deceive everyone into thinking the money had disappeared.
Nadia, honey, are you okay? You have a weird look on your face.
My thoughts drifted. Why would a person who wanted the money to disappear make it into an illusion? I would think an average person would find a way to do it without the illusion. So why?
I guess they didn't have many options.
David said. It's not so much about the options as it is about how they did it.
I didn't see it. Explain it to me.
The false bottom was an exact replica. If it was me, I would make a false bottom with wood or something that would blend in. But it wouldn't be exact. It would be plain with no detail because I wouldn't know what the true bottom looked like. The person would need a picture of the bottom or to somehow obtain specs. Then they would need to install the bottom before the tournament. Grayson stood, pulling out his phone.
I'll call for all the footage from the room before the tournament.
David turned to me.
Who would make a replica?
I thought for a moment. Someone who is a perfectionist, perhaps someone in the trade, maybe an illusionist. My eyes widened. Holy shit! An illusionist!